Hey, my friends. My name is Connor. I am joined with Sharon, Sion, and Rachel. We are at YWAM Harpenden, and we are privileged to be contributing for this month's ELLC theme of hospitality. Just recently, our mission lost a great, and that is Rita Pretorius. And she spent the last 2 decades or so here at YWAM Harpenden, but has been in the mission for over 40 years, was based at YWAM Amsterdam before being here. And today we are just going to chat. We're going to have some stories, share some reflections about hospitality based on the life of Rita, who we all got to know varying levels of intimacy throughout our time at YWAM Harpenden. And so I'm just wondering, does anybody want to share first a story, a reflection, and get the ball rolling on our reflections? All right, I can just hold this.
Okay. Yeah, I had the privilege of working alongside Rita in the hospitality house and also with her hospitality seminar and especially with our seniors lunch. And I can tell you that these last couple months since she's passed, we have really missed her because she was the one who would come up with the most creative ideas to decorate the tables that the seniors sit at, and we give a lunch to them and some entertainment. We do it once a month. And it was always a highlight of us as staff, but also for the seniors when they came in to see, oh, what's the table going to look like? And it was always something like cute, like a little poem for them or something they could take home. And then, you know, the colored napkin that matched the flowers that matched this. And so unfortunately I'm doing it now, and, it's nice flowers, and I'm always like, okay, what would Rita do in this situation? Give me an idea. I loved working with her and just seeing the creativity that God put in her and that she shared with all of us.
Yeah, those are big shoes to fill.
Very big.
No pressure.
And Rita, you mentioned this before we started recording. Rita had a real attention for detail. Is that something that you feel like you are trying to?
Yes.
You know,
I am a very detailed person, but it's she had detail and creativity, which is a amazing combination. So I'm growing in my creativity.
Yeah. So like napkins were folded a certain way, things matched.
Although she always did say that hospitality didn't come, like, it's not just napkin folding, but the details I think Rita put into it and her ability to beautify things came from a heart of hospitality, of wanting to make people feel welcomed and not out of a place, I'm going to show off my abilities.
Yes, exactly.
That was very cool.
Yeah. And a question about the seniors lunch, because obviously Rita was herself a senior.
It's true.
Did she ever feel, I don't know, maybe in your experience, did she ever feel like that disqualified her from reaching seniors? She actually would talk about them as if they were younger or older than her. Like way older. She would say the seniors, and we're like, okay. But she was always the first one there, usually to bring all of the things the flowers over and things. She'd be the first one to arrive for when we set up in the morning. So it was a good example for all of us to be on time and to be ready with it. But also, like you were saying, it wasn't out of how can we show how nice and pretty our tables are, but it was to show beauty to those who were coming. Even if it was just a 1-2 hour lunch. Yeah, I love that. And I love that Rita used hospitality as a form of outreach. And it was, she was planted here in Harpenden, and she had a specific task, but she used that gift and that thing that she was passionate about to reach out to the people locally in her community, which is so powerful. Rachel, what are some of the reflections or maybe the stories that you have?
I had the privilege of knowing Rita as a very close friend. She made me feel welcomed when I first got here. She would have me over for coffee every week for about maybe 3 or 4 years.
Dang.
So we got pretty close in that. And I think one of the things that Rita really marked me was the theme of being around the table and how being around the table can bring healing, it can bring redemption, it can bring unity. And one of the stories that ties into that is that one year I asked Rita to make cinnamon rolls for my family for Christmas, and I told her, I'll pay you for them. I want to start a new tradition for my family on Christmas of us having cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. And Rita told me, hold off. I like the idea, but hold off on that just a little bit. And I said, okay. Kind of was like, okay. She's thinking about if she can make it or not. Well, the next day, Rita shows up at my door with a basket full of ingredients, all the ingredients that are needed to make the cinnamon rolls, and she shared with me her secret cinnamon roll recipe.
Hey.
And so that really touched me, because instead of her just being like, sure, I'll make it, and making money out of it, she passed it on to me to be able to make it a tradition in my family. And it ties in with the value that she's talked to me so much about being around the table and what it brings. So that was really cool.
Wow.
That's awesome. And Rita's cinnamon rolls, they were renowned.
Yes.
They were renowned.
Yeah.
One of the things that I loved about Rita and her cinnamon rolls was that so whenever people were having to raise money for outreaches or visa renewals, things like that, she would always jump in on the fundraising on their behalf.
Yeah.
And she would always leverage her renowned cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
She knew that we all...
I've supported many people through the cinnamon roll.
Not because I wanted them to be in missions. No, just kidding. But because I wanted that cinnamon roll. I'm just kidding.
No.
But she would always, similarly, she would use that gift for outreach, but she would always use that gift as well, of hospitality, of baking, of things like that to help and to serve others as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and she's also a very generous woman. She's always either contributing to people's needs on base, or she's doing something like a fundraiser or something like that to contribute towards that as a way of being hospitable to the campus. So
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Rachel. Sion, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think there's many things I love about Rita besides her cheekiness that she had.
All right.
No, I think one of the things that inspired me about her hospitality is how present she was for the kids on the Oval.
Yeah.
And she would have them over, not just for like a dry biscuit and juice, but she would go all out. She would make cinnamon buns, she would bake a cake, and she would just have them over and ask them about how's your time in school? Are you nervous about going to school? And just really care about the children on this campus. I know, Rachel, you have kids, and your kids probably experienced, that love that she has poured into them. And so I think that's something that really inspired me about Rita, how present she was for all the kids on the Oval. And when there was half term and they're ready to go back, she would go on the community page being like, guys, let's pray for the kids that are going back to school. And I'm just like, man, she's really present in these kids' lives. And so I think that really opened up my heart and wow, hospitality is so much more than, like we said, folding napkins or, but it's just about praying for the little ones and just being really present for all of them.
So, and making them feel as part of the community,
part of the community
well.
Exactly.
And I think that plays into what we've been talking about as YWAM Harpenden lately, being intragenerational. And I think she displayed that well of how that can be done.
And I think that investment showed even at her memorial service how those kids were so impacted by the loss of Rita, and just seeing all of them, the day that she passed away, and how many of them came to see her, and just there's a lot of tears, and that just goes show the investment that she has poured into these kids. So
there were generations of YWAM kids sharing, kids who are in their 30s and 40s now sharing about the impact of Rita's hospitality and the fact that she would welcome people into her life and make them feel at home. And then, even, kids who are on campus now. So it's real generations of kids who were hosted.
And I actually just heard, sorry to interrupt, I think it was last week, a few kids were saying, oh, I miss Rita. And it was just wow, you wouldn't, I don't know, kids, you think they just kind of get on with life, but it's just, again, the investment that she's poured into these kids.
Yeah.
And it's what you mentioned, Rachel, about it being more than just being multi-generational, but we've been talking about this recently in our community, of being an intergenerational community where we are moving towards one another, not just coexisting with one another. And that's such it's such a powerful aspect of hospitality, and that's where we learn from the hospitality of Jesus, where he moved towards us as the one who had the position of power and, you know, everything. He moved towards us when we didn't deserve it. And similarly, Rita really demonstrated that as someone who had so much experience, wisdom, and moving towards little children who, you know, often we have nothing to benefit from, so to speak. But she moved towards them to pursue them and to host them and to love them well. And I think I personally saw how Rita championed young people as a young person on this campus. And I did the hospitality seminar a few years back, and I was newly married, and I had freshly joined the leadership team at YWAM Harpenden. And I was the only guy on the hospitality seminar. And Rita was so amazing in accommodating for me on the seminar in simple things of like recognizing my workload on the campus. But also, I just remember feeling like she was really thankful and genuinely like happy that I was there. And I felt like I got that from a few moments where, you know, somebody was speaking on Zoom or was there sharing about the hospitality seminar, and I would ask a question or something like that, and Rita would chime in and she would say, "This is Connor. He's just joined the leadership team." And I was like, thanks, Rita. You know, but it just felt like a mother or a grandmother who was so proud of you, just being like, "Oh man, I'm so proud of this young man stepping in, you know, learning this value, like wanting to be here and glean things." And I think throughout my time here at YWAM Harpenden on the leadership team, I felt like she would often come to me with ideas of how we could use our community to host people and to bless one another. But not just with an idea saying, "Oh, you do it," but saying, "What do you think? And then how do I help you make it happen?" She was always so good at coming up with an idea and then being willing to take responsibility, but then also like invite you into that process, which I found really powerful.
So like, question for you guys, like how can we like carry on that, like what are, like, you know, for me it's like, I think speaking on like how she invested in the kids, like that's something I would want to, like, I mean, I'm not going to try to be like Rita, but like that was something that really actually did impact me. And I was like, just being fully present with the kids and just making them feel part of this community. Like that's something that I want to try to kind of, you know, walk in that. Is there something that she did?
I think for me as somebody, someone that's overseen our kitchen on base and the cafeteria area, is always how can I make it more welcoming for people. I think that I learned that with Rita, and realizing how much the details matter in that. So sure.
I would say Rita was very good at making time for people. Even in just passing, when you're passing by her, she would stop and say hello and talk. And that's something I want to be better at, to make that time, even if it's a few minutes, because it does allow people to feel seen or to feel heard. One thing that also really was highlighted to me when we celebrated her life is you looked around the room and you just saw all these YWAMers from all over Europe, all over the world. And I know this video is for European leaders, and Rita didn't necessarily like go and talk in lots of schools. Like she wasn't this renowned YWAM speaker in DTSs, but she did take her seminar, and when she went places around Europe and around the world, she always was talking about hospitality. And I think just the way she didn't just keep it here at YWAM Harpenden is such a great example of YWAM International, and how she carried that value and how she spread that value and multiplied it.
That's good.
Good.
And that was one of the sort of like core 18 YWAM values, to practice hospitality. And she was continually beating that drum, making sure that as a mission we didn't lose that core value, which in the busyness of ministry and missions and efficiency we could very easily lose. And so she did such a great job with that. My thing that I want to take away from Rita's life is that she turned simple things into celebrations. And she was always looking for an excuse to have a father's table, which is what she would, I don't know if she made it up, but it was a big table just filled with like cheese and crackers and fruits and just great stuff.
So many snacks.
And she was always looking for an excuse to make one of those. So like turning simple things into celebrations.
And even I think like even how she still cared to her last like few days of life. Like I think she would often pray for other people. Like when people were praying for her, she's like, "Let me, like, can I pray for you?" And when she was, on her,
we were caring for her often. We would pray for her, and she'd say, "Okay, now let me pray for you." And it was just so touching because she's always looking for a way to give back. So
Yeah. Well, friends, thanks so much for taking time to share. And to our friends across Europe, we want to encourage you to live in the legacy of Rita, celebrate her life, and honor her by practicing hospitality well. And I would encourage you, and I would encourage all of us in our community as well, to continue asking the Lord, what does kingdom hospitality mean? How do we use this for mission? And how do we use this to expand and reveal his kingdom in our midst as missional communities? So thanks so much for taking time to listen to this, and bless you guys.